令和尚礼座问讯。
We show respect to the most venerable Shending. One half bow. Auspicious blessings to most venerable Shending. Please be seated.
Namo 本师释迦牟尼佛。
Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo 本师释迦牟尼佛。
Homage to Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo 本师释迦牟尼
Homage
佛。
to Shakyamuni Buddha.
无上甚深微妙法。
The most supreme and profound Dharma
百千万劫难遭遇。
is hard to encounter. It may take as long as thousands of kalpas.
得受持。
Today, I am able to encounter these precious
如
teachings.
来真实义。
I wish to realize the true meanings of the Tathagata's teachings.
各位心界菩萨，
Dear all new preceptors,
请放掌。
please rest your palms.
今天首先呢，
Today, first of
恭喜
all,
大
I
家
would like to congratulate all
能
of you
够受到三皈依，
that you have
且求
taken
受
refuge
戒
in the Triple Gem,
成为
as well as
正
to
式的
undertake
佛
the
教
five
徒
precepts.
真正的三
You are
宝弟
now
子。
an official Buddhist. You
大
are
家
the
在
disciple
正
of the
受的时
Buddha.
候啊，
During
So,
our bestowal
you see,
ceremony of the five precepts
teaching,
today,
大
throughout
家
the
都
ceremony,
做得非常的
all of
圆
you
满
have done an extremely good job. You have
威仪。
followed
这
through
都
the
是
ceremony
要感谢
with
我们
great
的
Buddhist
永护
etiquettes,
法师
and you have
在
observed
受戒
it
之前
through with great behavioral conducts and according to the Dharma way of hosting the ceremony.
在
And
理论方
we
面
have to express our gratitude to the guidance of Venerable Yonku, the Abbess of Okwanshan Temple of Toronto, for her guidance
教导，
for all of you.
所以在整个
As a result,
受戒
you are
仪式
able to experience a very smooth and a successful
庄严
ceremony
圆满
today.
我们求受三皈依呀、这
We
是
seek to take refuge in the Triple Gem. We are given the title now that we are an
这是
official
实
Buddhist,
际上真正的佛
undertaking
教
the
徒
five precepts. Also is the next step
就如同
for an
在学
official
校
Buddhist.
注册
This stage of development is similar to a student who registered in a
这
school.
个学生，
Once a student is enrolled in a school,
这是他的学校，
the student would then recognize that school as a
很照顾、关心学生，
base or home of his or her education.
认真的听课，
And as a result, where the student belongs, he or she will
所以
study
平
hard
时
and acquire his knowledge.
不少的人对佛教
There are a lot of people
也有兴趣，
who may show interest in learning about
只是
Buddhism,
没有因缘，
but he or she may not have the opportunity or conditions
注册
that allow them to take
不
refuge
是
in the Triple
真
Gem.
正的佛教徒了。
And as a result,
皈三宝
those
以后
people are not
成为一
considered
个佛教徒，
as an official Buddhist unless they have
就应
undergone
该有慈
the
悲心，
official ceremony of taking refuge in the Triple Gem.
爱护别人，
Once you have taken the refuge in the Triple Gem,
要受
we
持
need to
戒，
develop our compassion. We need to show our respect to others. And because of such initiatives and vows,
儒家的三
most
纲
often
五
the
常
Buddhists would take on to the next step, whereby they would undertake the five
仁义
precepts.
智信仁者
The
不
five
杀生
precepts also aligned with the benevolent acts or teachings. So for someone who is benevolent, will not kill others.
信者呢，不妄
People who have trust and faith will not tell lies.
过去
In the
中国的
past,
总书记领导
there's a lot of traditional customs and teachings whereby they would
构
propagate
建和谐社会啊。
some morals or ethics to maintain a stable society or a
三纲五
country.
常，人力礼智信能够做得好，就可以门不闭户啊，路不拾遗了。
Oftentimes, people believe that when a country is stable, they do not need to worry about security issues.
帮助啊，
Similarly, for a
管治安单位啊，
Buddhist, when they have taken the 5 precepts,
管戒啊，
those Buddhists would have
社会的安定，国家的安定。
a mind of peace whereby they do not need to worry about violating the laws of a society.
跟他说，五戒是我们佛教徒的做人处事应该遵守的道德标准。
And the 5
这位学
precepts
者因为也是有学佛
was
的，
being studied by a Western scholar,
他说
and this scholar once said that
五戒是全人类
not
应该
only
遵守
is
的
not
道
only
德
is the
标
5
准。
precepts something that every human being or
联合
humankind
国
should
因
uphold.
为在各
They
种
should
宗教
even
里
be the
头，
basis for any individuals who live in this present
佛
world.
教的义理
Because of the compassion, the teachings of compassion
促进世界和
the
平的。
fundamental teachings of
所以
Buddhism
也就
are
认定
essentials
为
to
活
educate
日
the citizens of a society
我们
to
皈
live
三宝，对三宝呢，
a
大
good
家
and a
学佛
stable
很久
life.
也都知道。不过，因为我们
The
受
teachings
持
of
五戒
compassion, it's
是
something
在
that is very
皈依三
common
宝的时候
for
得到的
a
戒
lot
指
of
的，
devotees who have been
也
the disciples of the Triple Gem for a long time. So it is something that is very familiar for all.
皈依三
We
宝
would like to focus on taking refuge in the Triple Gem, and we'll go over some of the essence of this teaching.
人人
So
都
when we
能够
refer to
成
the
佛
Triple Gem, we're referring to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the
可
Sangha.
是，在我们这个地球上，2500-2600年前呢，
2,500 years ago,
就是因为呢，释迦牟尼佛
the founder of Buddhism,
人生的真相，
Shakyamuni Buddha,
宇宙的
had
真理，
realized the
开
truth,
创了佛教
the，absolute truth,
所以他
and
是我们
was
的
able
本师，
to attain Buddhahood.
我们的师父了，这
And
个本师。
as a result, Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, is our root teacher.
也都可以做我们学习的导师
The medicine Buddha,
但是
for
在
example,
这个地球
they are all
人间呢，确实
guiding teachers
真理
of
是由释迦牟
on
尼
our
佛
path
发
of
现
learning
的，所以
or on a path of
皈依佛
cultivation as a
是皈依
Buddhist.
这个本师
So when we talk about taking refuge in the Buddha, we're referring to taking refuge
是释
to
迦牟尼
our
佛
teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha.
人生的真相
In，terms of taking
宇宙的
refuge
真理，
in the Dhamma,
皈依
we are
三宝
taking refuge
是
in a universal
能够
truth.
全心全意奉献自己的生命，
And after you have taken refuge,
为佛陀
an
的真
individual
理
is willing
延续下来，
to
代代地
propagate,
相传。
to share the wonderful teachings of the Buddha.
灯无尽，
It is similar to
这是
passing on
可
the
以
light
指导
of
我们学习佛
a
法
luminous
得到的
light
利
of
得乐
wisdom
甚至真
from
正
one
解
generation
脱
to the
生
next.
死的
And
三宝
it certainly also contributes to a way or a means of liberating oneself from the cycle of rebirth.
的慈悲，
The
值得我
compassion
们
of the
学
Buddha
习、尊敬、
is
皈依，
the qualities that we should learn to,
佛陀的智
that we
慧
should learn from,
可以让
that
我
we should
们
rely on,
离苦得
and
乐，
as a motivational force behind our path of
值得我们
cultivation.
的学习
Because of the Buddha's compassion, it's worthy of our motivation to learn from the Buddha, to take refuge in the Buddha. Prince Siddhartha was once a prince of a kingdom. He witnessed a lot of sufferings amongst humankind. Those sufferings are not something that can be solved by materialistic possessions or by money. And in addition, those sufferings cannot be eradicated simply by the intake of medicine or any forms or means. As a result, he decided to let go of his throne of being a prince, and he left the palace and wanted to look for an answer to resolve and to eradicate the sufferings of human beings. When we take refuge in the Triple Gem, we need to understand the motivation behind the renunciation of Prince Siddhartha to become or embark on his monastic life. What was his motivation? What was his mind state or mindset? It is out of great loving kindness and compassion that he decided to become a monastic, to renounce, and whereby he also followed the Noble Eightfold Path in order to realize the absolute truth, to attain enlightenment. A lot of the people would know that Shakyamuni Buddha contemplate on the law of dependent origination in order to achieve enlightenment. But as a matter of fact, the Buddha actually relied on the Noble Eightfold Path to his realizations of the absolute truth. During his meditation, the Buddha utilized righteous understanding and right contemplation. And the Buddha contemplated on as to why humans experience the stages of life, sickness, and death. Why is it that human beings have to experience a lot of sorrows and sufferings as they undergo the stages of life, aging, sickness, and death? So the Buddha thought over it in every detail, and he contemplated over and over again. And he realized and understand fully. He realized that because there is birth of humans, once a human is born, that individual will inevitably experience aging, sickness, sufferings, and death. Because there is birth, therefore aging, sickness, and death will follow. Isn't this a very simple and common sense concept? Shakyamuni Buddha have to experience a lot of hardships in order to realize this phenomenon. Because of several causes and conditions to arise, there are causes and conditions to cease. So the Buddha really realized that there is, we have memory, and the existence of memory is a state of energy. So because of this memory, we recall a lot of our experiences. For example, in the industrial or in a factory, because there are materials and resources, they are able to produce their product. So now when we talk about humans, we need to think about what are the causes and conditions for us to become a human being. Because there is that existence as well as energy. And because of these conditions, and as you contemplate further, because of our own grasping, our attachments, our desire and cravings, all of those behavioral conducts would resulted in some form of memory. And this memory also constitutes to a state of energy. And because of our physical actions, all of those are part of material state or materialistic state. And within that materialistic state, there is also a force of energy. And our mental state has its own component or has its own memory as well. And this mental state and this memory are the driving force behind where and how our next life would be. And after deep contemplation, we realize that as humans, we have desire, we have our own attachments, and if there's something that you really like, you have a tendency to own it, to possess it, because you like it very much. Because it is to your preference or to your likeness, and hence you will like to chase or grasp the item or the state. So what the Buddha had realized is that he realized that due to our deluded mind or our delusive concepts is what resulted in many of our sufferings. We feel that things are permanent. For example, flowers. You may feel that we know that flowers would wither and die after a period of time. We would like to live a life filled with happiness, that a moment of joy will last forever. Nonetheless, our emotions, our thinking, our decisions, all of those will change and can change. And because of that change, that means nothing is permanent, nothing is eternally in existence. And a lot of times we feel that change will cause or result in sufferings. And oftentimes because of that, a lot of people feel that when there is change, they expect something bad is going to happen. And you can see the ignorant state of mind of the general people, and due to such thought processes, it also then contributes to our storehouse or a memory. This storehouse of memory also contributes to an energy, or it determines our rebirth. And as a result of our sensory organs, we develop various state
就会升起一种
of mind.
desire，
And because of our sensual desires, we tend to have our own desires, our own
追求以
attachments,
后就存在的我们的
and
记忆体
as a result of those
就成了生
attachments,
死轮回。
we generate a state of energy that is once again stored in our memory
生命的
house.
过程一定有这个因
So witin the
才有
life,
这个
the
果
cycle of life,
一定有这个
there
因
are
缘才有
certainly
这个果
the causes,
有不正确的思维
conditions,
无明
and
才有
it's
错
in
误的
fact
行为的行，
because
错误的
of
行为才有
wrong
我们的生命体的
actions,
记忆体，
it will result in negative
有这个生命体
energy,
的意识
and as
心
a
理
result of the negative energy,
跟母
it
亲
also
肚子的
contributes
身
to
体
a
物质
negative
肉体
consciousness.
合在一起，开始发
And
展
consciousness,
这样的过程，
along with
因果因果因。
other associated causes and
我们知
conditions,
道佛教因果的见地
enable a new development of life.
观察生命，
What the Buddha had realized through his deep contemplation is as to
被
why
苦恼是果，
humans
它
experience
的因
birth,
是因那个出生，
aging, sickness, and death.
因
It is
出生
because there is
但
that
事实上
cause of
生下来一
birth.
个小孩，一个人，一个
Once
动
the
物，
baby is
它是一
born,
个
or
果，
even when an animal
它
is
的
born,
因是什么？
that is a
我们
fruitful
要知道
effect.
生命体
But what are the causes of that birth or of that
有物
existence?
质体、肉体，
We could feel our
肉体
body,
是被
we
动，
could feel
心理才是主
a
动。
form of
所以
existence.
讲到生命是以心理、精神的为主体。
Nonetheless, our mental state is driven by our
记忆体的
consciousness
能量
and our energy
的因
of our
才有
memory.
生的果。
And because of
这个记忆
the
体
above
的
mentioned
能量，它
components,
是一个果，
it
它是对
constitutes
我们
to
的身体的行为、语
a
言的
new
行为、
beginning
心
of
理的
life.
行为，不断的
And
造作，
our
不断的
behavioral
去追求留下的根
conducts
基。
is affected
所以有行为的
by
因，
our
才有记
inner
忆体
state
的
of
果。
mind.
这些行为的产生，
Many of our behavioral conducts, for example, because of our desires and our
才
attachments,
有这行为的果。
we
行为的因才有记忆体的果。
contributes to many of the
那我们大
consequences
家
of
学
our own
佛，就要
behavioral
知道，
patterns.
释迦牟尼佛
As a Buddhist, we should realize
正
that
思维
the Buddha
了解到
utilizes
realize
the
也是
Eightfold Path,
ignorance，也是不正确的思维。
that which is then he realized that there is the factor of ignorance of humankind, which resulted in a lot of
都是成为因果。
sensual desires and attachments, and as a result, there are a lot of sufferings in life. Once you are able to attain this right understanding,
它是有正思维。
it's reliable, it's based on right thinking or right thoughts.
这样子才明白因果的道理。因为这样子，他发
And
现
through this righteous understanding and righteous
果就
thinking,
会灭。
then we are able to understand the law of causality or the law of causes and effect.
取的灭，取灭
And because of our sensual desires, we have created our own sufferings, and this all tie in to the law of arising
爱取有
and ceasing based on causes and conditions.
生老病死，
Birth, aging, sickness, and death.
正思维正见，发现了这四圣谛，发现了这因果。
It's something that can be eradicated after you have realized the Four Noble Truths and understanding of the proper phenomenon of causes and conditions. When you contemplate on the cycle
从今生的行为来决定，
law of
今生的生命是过去
causes
世
and conditions,
行为留下痕
we
迹
are able
展现。
to perceive that our present life is based on our past actions and consequences. There's definitely a cause behind all sufferings, and this cause can be our own attachments and desires. Because there are causes and effect, if the conditions are not ripened or are not in existence, then the effect will not come into play. And when ignorance is eradicated, and by the same token will not establish into our delusive mind or any sensual desires and attachments. Based on this concept, we would then come to understand that the Shakyamuni Buddha had contemplated on the stages of life for him to perceive the absolute truth. The Buddha became enlightened within the human realm. He contemplated on life through his inner mental state, and he was able to perceive the absolute truth and to liberate himself from the cycle of rebirth. A lot of sentient beings learn from the Buddha's compassion as well as his wisdom. The great compassion and wisdom, perfect wisdom of the Buddha is certainly something that is worth all sentient beings to learn, to respect, and to follow.
对于穷人贱民说法，对于善良的人说法，对于穷凶极恶的人说法。
There are a lot of skillful means where the Buddha was able to propagate his teachings to many different audience, whether that individual is poor, rich, or various classes. The Buddha has, because of his great compassion, there is no discrimination between who he would liberate through his Dharma propagation. Our behavioral conduct, or what we do in our actions, would determine our own consequence that we need to forbear. Once there was a killer who killed many lives. Shakyamuni Buddha realized that this individual has some opportunity for him to teach him about the Buddha's teachings. And one day the Buddha decided to speak to this killer. And they were in a farm. The farmer saw the Buddha coming in, and the farmer advised the Buddha and said, don't come in, there is a killer in this farm. The Buddha said, no, I'm not afraid. I would like to go into this forest. And the killer saw the Buddha and was thinking in his mind, oh, if I killed the Buddha, this is the 100th person that I've killed, then I will fulfill my mission of killing people. So that was the thought that went through the mind of this killer. So Shakyamuni Buddha was being called by this killer. The killer said, freeze, freeze. And the Shakyamuni Buddha said, I've always stood still. It's just that you haven't realized so. And the killer said, that's nuisance. Of course, you're not standing still. The Buddha explained to him and said that there is no, my mind has been very still. There is no thought of killing other people. There's not even a single thought of harming others. Whereas for you, your mind is always all over the place. Your mind is never at peace and is never at rest. You have always thought about how to kill people. So once this killer heard the teachings from the Buddha, he immediately attained, realized the essence of his teachings, and he knelt down before the Buddha and requested that he renounce his life. Based on this story, you can tell that the Buddha has a lot of skillful means to propagate the teachings and to liberate sentient beings. He was able to liberate people who are poor, to many different populations from different walks of life. And the Buddha never discriminated who he would share his compassion and his wisdom. When we reflect on our own practice and our own cultivation, we should think about the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, causes and conditions. We should reflect on our own experience. How long does it take for us to have this opportunity to learn from the Buddha? Based on the law of dependent origination, all phenomenon arises due to various causes and conditions. That's the law of dependent origination. All phenomenon exist because of its own driving force, its conditions. If you put a cube of sugar into a glass of water, the water will become sweet. If you put a pinch of salt into a glass of water, it becomes salty. So there are definitely some roots or driving force behind all conditions. So where there is birth, there is death. So birth in itself is a cause, and death is the effect. And when we have our sensory desires, our own attachments has causes, and what would come into effect is frustrations and sufferings as a result of our attachments and delusive mind. So because of if there is coffee bean, we can then generate coffee powder. And once we have, when we have coffee bean, then we can make a cup of coffee. Those are all based on causes and conditions. They're all abiding by the law of causality. That's the truth. Those are the conditions and criteria for all phenomenon in life. All life forms and all existence will follow and abide by this law of causes and conditions. There is this law that does not change. Its basis in ground rules for all phenomenon. Everything arises and ceases based on causes and conditions. So let's look at a piece of garment. When you have the materials to form a piece of garment, then you can make it into many different forms of fashion or clothing.
们吃的
Now, if you look at food, for instance, the bread that we eat,
不可能自己成为面包，
flour on its own cannot become bread. You need water.
水还有人工，
You also need
不管你做
manual
面
labor,
条、包子、
even noodles, buns, pizza.
种种，
All of those
一
items
定有它的
also
工具，
has its causes and conditions for it to
或者蒸笼，
transformed
锅煮，
into its own form and existence.
有人
There
工
are some fundamental conditions that is required, like water, manual labor. All of those are examples that you can see in our daily life from the food and the drinks that we consume.
住的房子
Because there are various causes, then we can see the effect.
不能成为房子，
If you look at a house
没有工具，
without
不可能成为房
materials,
子。
the raw materials to build a house, without those, the house will not come into existence.
材料工具是
And
人啊，
including labor
一粒种
and
子
everything else. For example,
盖起来，
the seed,
也不可能
if you
长大。
place it into a closed container,
放到泥土里
even
头
after 100 years, it will not develop into a
很
plant
快
or
它就
grow.
长芽了，
But if you place a seed under ground with
无缘
soil
不成果，
and its needed
但是如
nutrients, it will
果
blossom
肯定
into
有
a
一
tree.
根源，
So,
这是
based
必
on the
然的
above
法则。
examples, you can see that the law of causes, conditions, and effect apply to every phenomenon in
做好
life.
事，
So, when we talk about the three good deeds, to say good words, do good things, and have good thoughts would definitely result you in great fortune. That's the truth, and that's abiding by the law of causes and conditions and
所
effects.
以明白
So
这个
it's
因果的
important
法
for
则
us to understand this law of causality, to understand the Four Noble Truths.
极盛地是因为我们的身体的行为，
So there are
语言的
causes
行为
to our
心的
suffering,
行为
and where does
心的
this
行为是
causes come from? It's all based on our desires,
身体的行
our
为
attachments, and our own physical behavior.
不偷盗
So it's important for us to refrain from killing,
语言的行为
refrain from sexual
不
misconduct.
欺语
That's a purification of our body. And in terms of purification of our speech, is to refrain from telling lies. And hence our purification of our mind
就叫做十善
when
业。
we have good thoughts. That's a component or in which that it will constitute to good behavior and good deeds. We also need to practice the 10 good deeds or the 10 wholesome deeds.
空性慧
And while we are practicing those good deeds, it has to be based on the mindset of having great compassion, loving kindness,
不欺语，不两舌，
and
不恶口，
out of great compassion and
不
loving
嗔恨，不
kindness,
邪见。
our behavioral conduct would
同
improve.
时，
And bodhisattvas do not kill, they do not lie, and they diligently serve
就是
to help
这个十
others.
善业。
And
这十善业就是从
they
五戒
practice the 10 wholesome deeds fully.
五戒，
And
这是比较
for
正
the 5
直的
precepts,
爱护自己，尊重别人
it's the foundation to show respect for oneself as well as
所以五戒
others.
是不杀
We are
生，
protecting
不盗盗，不欺
ourselves and not to violate others as a means of showing respect.
到了十善业，
Now,
都加了不
when we
欺
talk
不
about
两
the
舌
10 wholesome deeds,
再加上一业的
we
不
would
贪
add
不
on
嗔
to the 5
不邪见
precepts, which includes
生活上
no
愚
falseful
蠢
speech
容易造作
and
种
no double tongue
罪业，
as
不当的行
for
为
purification of our speech.
最严重的是多喝酒，未来
In terms of no intake of intoxicants,
来生呢，
that's
变成
a way or a means to protect our physical
不
body.
欺
Buddhism focuses on the teaching of prajna, wisdom. So it's important for us to develop wisdom through the understanding of absolute truth. And because of our final goal of attaining realization or attaining enlightenment, it's important for us to have a healthy well-being, both physically and mentally. And the 5 precepts are certainly the first step towards the path of attaining enlightenment. Some people may feel that you're being forced to take the 5 precepts, or either you are being requested by the Venerables to take the 5 precepts. That shouldn't be the case. It should be coming out of your own inspiration or aspiration to undertake the 5 precepts. Our life is certainly based on our behavior, and our future life is based on the present life behaviors and conducts. What governs our future life is the accumulation of our present merits and karma. So when you have a good understanding of the law of causes, conditions, and effect, and you would then follow the Noble Eightfold Path to embark on a journey where you will want to lead a righteous life. So when we follow the Noble Eightfold Path and when we uphold the 5 precepts, those are the foundations or basis whereby we can assure ourselves that we are walking on the righteous path. When we take refuge in the Dhamma, we are taking refuge in the law of causes, conditions, and effect. Whatever causes there is, and whatever conditions that arise would constitute or would govern the final effect and consequences. Whether or not you are taking refuge or not, there is this concept: if you do good things, you have good effect or good outcome. Those are the truth, and it is the law of causality. Some people may say that I do not need to take refuge at all. And when we talk about taking refuge in the Sangha, we are referring to a community of practitioners, which includes the monastic members as well. So whether or not a practitioner attain enlightenment or not, be it an individual that is a lay person or a saint, is still worth us taking refuge in the Sangha, as they are a community of Dharma protectors. So when we take the initiative to take refuge in the Triple Gem, it is all of your own choice. After a decision that is made based on righteous understanding of the purpose behind taking refuge. And as part of the process of taking refuge in the Triple Gem, once you have taken refuge, you develop confidence behind the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The amount of faith and confidence is like the amount of respect that you show towards the Buddha. The Dhamma, on the other hand, is what we need to follow and to practice. So, out of the three refuges, taking refuge in the Dhamma is the most important because we need to follow the Buddha's way. We need to follow the Buddha's teachings. It will make the Buddha very happy because of your diligent practice. So, based on the law of causality, once again, if you conduct bad deeds or bad behavior, you would have bad consequences and effect. It is important for us to realize that the essence of taking refuge, as a matter of fact, is to generate a driving force behind, where you have the motivation to be a good person and to live a good life. You fully have complete confidence and faith that you can rely on the Triple Gem to learn, and you can rely on the Triple Gem for you to seek liberation from the cycle of sufferings. And because of that deep understanding and very stable faith and confidence, it actually protects you from committing any wrongdoings. No matter what environment or circumstances that you're presented with, you would still be mindful that I am a Buddhist. I have taken refuge. I know where I should be and where I shouldn't be, what I should do and what I shouldn't do, what things I should eat or shouldn't eat. Those are all the benefits of taking refuge. It fosters protection to our life, regardless of what the conditions are. So, when it comes to taking refuge, it has the same benefit because you realize in the past, if you may have some wrong or bad behaviors, you would realize or acknowledge them, and thereby try to transform any bad behaviors into good. And that's an example of the benefits of taking the 5 precepts. The benefits of upholding the precepts increase on a daily basis, and it has to be based on complete faith towards the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And once you have obtained the essence of the precepts, as well as the respect and faith towards it, you can then exhibit the function of undertaking those precepts. And based on your own physical conditions, for laity or lay people, typically Buddhists would uphold the 5 precepts. So it's similar to a screening process. There is this form of undertaking the 5 precepts, and you become upasaka or upasika. So it's important for us to single-mindedly uphold the pure precepts because of its benefit. it actually will result in a peace of mind. Because if you think about your past experience, if you have committed something bad, you will regret after it. You feel unhappy about what you have done. Or if you have said something bad to a person, you would also regret for being a bad person or being harsh to others. So it's about acknowledging your own faults and to ask to be forgiven. So when we talk about the 5 precepts, no killing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, no taking of intoxicants, as well as no stealing, it's something that we abide hereafter to infuse a stream of tranquility and peace for our own mind. Once you have upheld the 5 precepts, it actually gives you the energy and function. And what the functions of the precepts do is it restrain as well as an analogy. It's about a pressing or a roller, where if you look at a wheel, when it's being rolled over a lawn of grass, the grass will become flat. So what happened is that this flattened lawn is similar to our mind state, where you have your mind is being calmed or is being restored to a stable state, and does not allow any delusive thoughts or wandering thoughts to occur. So if you're able to uphold the 5 precepts, you would then experience a freedom state of mind. All of the 5 precepts is based on the important mindset of loving kindness and compassion. We need to consider others before oneself. Within the Buddhist scripture, it's been stated that what we humans like the most is our life. We protect our life with our greatest ability. And once or when our life is being harmed, we become scared. We also become angry. What we tend to do as well is, when our money is being stolen, we also become angry and scared. When our family members, like your spouse or your children, are being harmed, we feel tremendous sadness and sorrow, as well as fear. So when you think about other people's life, if it's being harmed by your action, when others, family members, are being harmed by your actions and behavior, and those people would also experience the same sorrows and sufferings that you had experienced when your own family members are being harmed. So it's about putting yourself in others' shoes. And that's a way to practice and cultivate our loving kindness and compassion. So out of the need to respect and to protect others, So in the Buddhist years, when the disciples of the Buddha take refuge in the Triple Gem, they don't have to go through a long ceremony. They simply just need to recite the passage. I, the name of the disciple, will take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, life after life. I vow to protect all life forms. And they just keep it simple like that after a simple recitation of a few passages. So what is we need to sustain our life, such as materialistic possessions, similarly, we should use the same means of protection towards our materialistic possessions and apply the same fondness of protection towards other people's life. So it's important for us to love life and to protect life. There are a lot of Buddhists who may have learned about Buddhism for a long time and yet haven't taken refuge in the Triple Gem. So, as a matter of fact, people who simply take refuge in the Triple Gem, they are just being called or named as Buddhist, but only when they move on to undertake the 5 precepts, then they are officially Buddhists or Buddhists in action. So once a lot of people would consider Buddhists who have taken refuge in the Triple Gem that they are better people because they know Buddhists will not violate others. They will not violate others' reputation or try to possess other people's belongings or materialistic wealth. That is why the Buddha had called or named the 5 precepts also as the 5 generosity of 5 givings. When we offer comfort to others, we are giving comfort and words of encouragement to others, and that's an act of selflessness. It helps others to develop trust and to comfort others, and is fearless. So when we give, others are not afraid to receive. So the 5 precepts are also known as the 5 selfless or fearless giving.
未来世、今生、过去世的过程，就要知道这个极胜地，就是我们要保持正语、正业、正面。
So it's important for us to realize or to protect our body, speech, and mind in order to maintain a righteous speech, to live a righteous living, in order to sustain a well-lived life, or else we may not be able to become or be born in the human realm again in our future life. For the heavenly beings, they lived a life where they have tons of pleasurable enjoyment. They have experienced a lot of happiness, and yet once those fortune or wealth are consumed, they will also be born in the lower realm or the human realm as well. So in the human realm, on the other hand, because of a motivation to advance. We want to achieve more and to attain enlightenment, and those are the driving force for us to practice diligently in order for us to attain the ultimate goal of attaining liberation. And because of this goal, we want to be a better person. And how to be a better person is to observe the 5 precepts: no killing, no lying, no stealing, no intake of intoxicants, and no sexual misconduct, as well as to live a life with righteous speech and righteous living. The Buddha established no intake of alcohol, and later on, because of the shift in society needs, it was also being expanded to include a precept whereby there is no intake of drugs or intoxicants. The appearance of an individual, be it good or bad, has also something to do with one's behavior. When someone is happy, or is grateful, or feel content, along with the characteristics of good tolerance and patience, he or she will transform into a good person. On the other hand, if someone always has hatred, that person will become less good looking. Our appearance certainly is affected by our inner state of mind as well as our behavioral conduct. Many of the bodhisattvas and Buddhas have such great merits and fortune because they have taken refuge and uphold the precepts in its pure and diligent form. So, in order for us to have our next life or be born with adornment, we must observe and uphold the pure precepts. So there was a gentleman who looked out a window and saw a girl looking at him, and he thought this is in the middle of the night, so maybe this girl it's a ghost or a spirit, or this is someone that's trying to cause me some trouble. So he actually invited this girl, female ghost, to come in. And this female ghost did not say a word. But every night, this female ghost would come and pay a visit to this gentleman. So one night, this gentleman decided to force this female ghost to say something, but the female ghost insists, she does not know how to speak. She needs a piece of paper and pen. And she explained and wrote on a piece of paper and said, in the past, I was the wife of a very wealthy man. And because of my arrogance, and I always cause a lot of disputes or quarrel with other people. So because of this misconduct, I was I was trapped in this life where I am unable to speak a word, and I have been in this state for over 200 years. So this female ghost actually requested this gentleman to help her by reciting a sutra. As well as to transcribe the Diamond Sutra 10 times. So at the end of the 10th time of transcribing the sutra, the female ghost expressed her gratitude, and then that's when the gentleman also realized that there was another misbehaved conduct, and her next consequence is still unresolved because she's unable to speak a word. The only way that she can resume her speech is after another eons of transforming those negative karma. So another story that I would like to share is a leader was leading a troop of soldiers, and the Buddha and his disciples were reciting sutra, and the soldiers were pretty amazed by their beautiful voice as they were chanting. And the Buddha said that fine, pay me first, and I will offer chanting. And the soldier were quite surprised at seeing the appearance of this person who was able to chant with such a beautiful voice, because he wasn't as good looking. And the Buddha said to him, don't be surprised. There are causes and conditions as to why his appearance is like so. So the Buddha explained, in the past lives, there was a king who showed a lot of respect to a petitioner, and when there was a request whereby they need to offer the remainings when the individual passed away, that they need to enshrine the body remains in a very elegant manner. So there were workers that was involved to build a stupa. So the workers complained about the hardships and high demand. So they kept whining and complaining about the work that they need to do. At the end, the stupa was completed, and they feel they feel that they could hang a charm on the very top of the stupa, so when the gentle breeze
因为过去式
when there is any gentle breeze, they can hear the charm of the bell.
跟这个三宝有缘分呢，
There is this special condition where the stupa, the establishment of the stupa is associated with taking refuge in the triple gem. In the process where they were building the stupa, they kept
所以他没生
they
没
kept
世就
complaining.
站在
So
很多年
there's a lot of whining and complaining involved. So he's always having a terrible looking face because of his complaining and whining.
声音非常优美，人人听不到的欢喜，
However,
就因为这
the
个，所以呢
charm that they hung on the top of the stupa generate a very nice tone, and as a result,
为了未来相貌
over many years of listening to this charm,
声音各方面都
he
好
was able to establish a good voice.
的受持这个母亲
So, based on this story, once again, it's a reminder for every one of us to uphold the precepts in a diligent manner
不杀生
and
不
on
偷盗不
a
邪
daily basis. We should remind ourselves not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, no sexual misconduct, and no intake of
刚才是讲
intoxicants.
从四圣地极圣地来说
I was gonna mention the Four Noble Truths, and as mentioned
那
earlier,
你肯定要受戒的，要持戒清
our
净。
present life is based
那
on
佛
the
陀的
causes
时
of
候
our
呢，
past
教导
life,
弟子
and
日常生
because
活
of this,
要怎么样子？
it tells us the importance of upholding the
金
five
刚
precepts.
经来说，
The Buddha also explained further in the Dhamma Sutra, where he was speaking to the
依
Sariputra,
法
one of the
应无所
disciples,
住，
that
行义布施，所
the
以不住受布施，不住身
one
心为什
should
么布施？
offer
这样子呢，大家要知道，《金刚经》呢是人间的讲，
wholeheartedly and with
在我们六根对六尘的时
attachments
候，
to any form.
不要起贪。
So we shouldn't develop into a mind
那如
of
果我们知道，
greed.
《金刚经》很多人喜欢读，也都会背。但是要知道，《金刚经》是
The
日常
Dhamma
生活
Sutra
的一
is
部宝典，
a
真的是人间的
very
讲。
precious
金刚
scripture
经呢，
uh,
它以我的联想，它
that
跟护罗罗尊者
you should
佛陀
learn
的大
about.
弟子请教佛陀开示护罗是有关系的。
The Buddha and one of his great
而生其
disciples
应该是护罗罗尊者跟释迦牟尼请教
had a
佛法
conversation, and that's
这
the
样的一件事情，
format of the Dhamma
发展
Sutra.
成为金刚经。
And the Dhamma Sutra recorded this conversation, and it's important for us to
佛陀时代有一次呢，护罗罗尊者
one of
请佛陀
the
开示佛法，
uh,
佛陀呢
disciples
所
of
善
the
待
Buddha
善待
requested
太
the
好了太
Buddha
好了
to
你能够
deliver
问如来甚深义，
teaching.
我呢要跟你讲，你呢专心谛听，善思念之。
So the Buddha began to preach the Dhamma to his disciple.
在生活
He
上，
said that in
如果
our
眼
daily
睛看
living,
到
whatever
可乐、
when we see
可爱、可意，
something that is will
这
give
种呢
us
微妙美胜，
happiness, something that will generate our
升起
attachments,
这个 desire 这个
it
欲
will
望，
result in
会
desire.
升起呢欢喜。
It will also generate some
由
joy
于
and
心生
praises.
欢喜赞美啊，
And because
那么
of
就会呢
the
attach，
joy
就会满足。
that arise, we would then
如
be
果这样的
attached
话呢，
to those pleasurable sensations.
解脱生死很远很远哦。
When
眼
we
睛
are trapped in that state of mind, then we're moving further and further away from the liberation. So whatever the body, the mind, and our own actions will follow through because of those sensory pleasures that we craved for or we attach to, and we are moving further and further away from the goal of liberation. However, if we encounter something that is good, something that you know will generate happiness, and yet you are able to understand that those are just temporary phenomena, you would not establish a vigorous mind state where you would be attached to those sensory pleasures. And as a result, because of the attitude and mind state, you are moving closer to attaining liberation. So that's a simple teaching given to one of the Buddha's disciples. So the Buddha's disciple responded and said, I recall the Western Pure Land.
佛陀说：“哦，西方苏卢诺那个国家那个地区的人，
one region in the Western Pure Land,
很爱骂人呢，很凶恶的哦。他们假如这样对付你，你怎么说？”
might still have some people that would cause some harm. So what would you do? The disciple said, this is what I will attempt. So if they scold me, or if they exhibit any anger, or speech of slandering, or even physical attack, what are you going to do and how are you going to handle it? So the Buddhist disciple said, what I would think in my mind is that those people in this land may simply give me a punch or slap on my body, but they did not use any rocks or stones to throw at me. But the Buddha intervened and said, what if they do? They may even use a stick to hit you. And then the disciple said, that's okay. Maybe at least they're not using a knife to stab me to death. And then the Buddha said, well, who knows? Maybe that's going to happen. And once again, the disciple replied, well, at least I would be alive. They didn't kill me or stab me to death yet. And the Buddha said, well, those are hard to say. And he continued to explain, this disciple mentioned to the Buddha that there are many disciples who may choose to end his or her life through various means. And this disciple would say that, that maybe they're giving me an easy way of death. So the Buddha then proclaimed wondrous what a good practice or tolerance and forbearance. So what the Buddha had tried to preach is that there is no attachments to any form. For example, anything that generates joy, happiness, yet there is no desire or attachments. Something that you like, something that gives you pleasurable sensations, and you're still not attached to it in any way. if you are able to maintain a mind of no attachment and no desire, you would then be upholding a mind of equality, and there's no grasping or no desire, and you would not be angry, and hence a state of peaceful mind. And at the same time, you would then be willing to give generously. However, this disciple of the Buddha is not afraid of death, and all he wants to do is to liberate others. So, in the Dharma Sutra, it also talks about tolerance and forbearance. And the Buddha's disciple had also practiced the teachings of the Buddha to not abide one's mind to any form or attachments. The 5 precepts talks about no killing, no stealing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, and no intake of intoxicants. So if we know that in our daily life, when we observe the Noble Eightfold Path of right speech, right views, and right understanding, and it's easy enough for us to maintain a mind whereby we're not influenced by the external circumstances. There was a time in the Buddha's years where Sariputra was outside and he encountered the Buddha. So Buddha asked Sariputra, what were you doing? So Sariputra said to the Buddha, I am practicing meditation. And the Buddha said, oh, you were, what do you mean by very supreme meditation? So Sariputra explained and said that, let's say if you encounter very beautiful women and your mind is not affected by the beautiful appearance of that woman, that's one state of mind. Or on the other hand, if your desire had reached a state where you feel like your body is being burned by a flame of fire. And what happened right after is, despite that sensation, you try with all you can to put out that fire of desire or attachment. So it's important for us to realize the thought processes that is going on in our mind. So you're able to control your mental state. And in our daily living, our 6 sensory organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, if we are unaffected by the external circumstances, you are then putting meditation in action into practice. That's what the Buddha had taught his disciple to practice meditation in their daily life.
如果我们知道呢，
And what it's all about is to be mindful of our own actions,
影响到
that
来
you
生
are always aware
我们
of
真
your
正
body,
要
speech,
在
and
国
mind.
法得到国法
In order for
妙用
us to really experience the benefit of the Dhamma and to develop our own
从法
self,
无到圣贤，
is
从
to
杂染
apply
到
the
清
Buddha's
净，
teachings
从动荡
and
到
to
寂静，
transform our bad
这样子
behaviors
呢
into
你
good,
就要
and
非常的
as well as to transform
提
ignorance
心
into
吊胆一
enlightenment.
样。
We need to be extremely cautious of our own actions. Once
如果
the Buddha asked his disciple and said,
站在
if
那，
there is a
你们
group
说
of beautiful
会
women,
不会引起很多人
do
很
you
喜欢
think
来
a
看？
lot of people would be coming forward to look at these beautiful
释迦牟
women?
尼说，
And
如果这
the
一群
disciple
美女
said yes.
又
The
会
Buddha
唱歌
then
又
asked
会跳
further,
又
if
会
this
表
group
演
of，beautiful
会不会吸引
women is
更多
able
人
to
来看？
dance, to sing
弟子们
as
说
well,
会
then what
的
would happen?
哦，
Even more
好。
of a bigger crowd?
现在
And then
呢
the
有一个
disciples
神
say,
啊，
yes,
他
certainly.
呢
And the
国王
Buddha
要给他
continued
去做官，
to say
可是呢要
that
经过一段考验，
um,
他呢
there's an important stage of challenge
在头顶上，这样子呢要走过这群美女，
for you is to
他
carry a
身后
bowl
有一个
of
人拿着一把
of
非常
oil
锐利
and
的
place
刀，
this bowl on top of
所
your
以跟
head
在身后，
and walk
如果
through
呢
this crowd
就
of
有第一
beautiful
滴出来
women.
马上砍头，
So, and then there's someone holding a knife
这个人
and walk along with you. If there's just one drop of oil that's
总不能
spilled
小心翼翼
from
的
this bowl,
向前
that
走，
person
绕过
will
墙一周
simply
以后
kill you with
回
this
到老
knife.
公，
So
问他一路
this
上你没有看到美女呀？
this person was being asked to take off. And the Buddha asked this individual, did you see any beautiful women on your way? And he said, no.
他说我怕有滴出来。
And then the disciple responded and said that I am afraid to look, and I am even more afraid that this I will spill oil from this bowl, and my head will be slaughtered off and be killed.
要先好好照顾着自己，才有办法真正得到。
So it's important for us to really be
所以
in control of our own life, and hence be able to strive for liberation of our own life. There are a lot of people who, when they are explaining about the Diamond Sutra, which present some ideas or concepts that are hard to grasp, but yet would like to emphasize that the Bodhisattvas rely on the Dhamma and be not attached to any form and any sensory organs. And when they are making or practicing the act of giving and generosity. So when we're talking about the six sensory organs and about which result in form, perception, consciousness, volition, we should be reminded not to be affected by our external circumstances, as well as our own sensory organs and perception. In order for us to practice diligently and develop further on our path of cultivation, it's important for us to single-mindedly uphold the pure precepts. If you're able to uphold the 5 precepts, your future will be much better. This time, as I came to Toronto to preside over the ceremony, Venerable Yunku had said that I guess there are 400 people, some people say 450 participants, and then very many say definitely it will reach 500 participants for this chanting for this retreat, precept ceremony. So Venerable Yunku said that this refuge and 5 precept ceremony for this occasion. What about next time? Can we have the Bodhisattva precept ceremony for in the future?
看到这个掌声在各位的这只有受菩萨戒。
So with this background of applause, perhaps a lot of keeners who would like to uphold the Bodhisattva's precepts. So that's a good sign. So the 5 precepts, once again, is on the basis of not violating others and to purify our body and mind. This portion is similar to removing the weeds from your front lawn. But if you don't plant any seeds, then there is no yield. So when we talk about taking the Bodhisattva's precepts, it's similar to removing the weeds in the front lawn and also plant some seeds of developing bodhicitta. So Bodhisattva's precept is the next step towards attaining Buddhahood as you initiate and develop a mind of bodhicitta. There are Bodhisattva's precepts. There's also the precepts of based on hearing or listening to the Buddha's teachings and not to violate others and respect others, which includes 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhunis precepts as well. All of those are on the basis of hearing or listening to the Dhamma. And each of the precepts is also categorized into female, males, and even between monastics and laity. And there's Praktamoksha or precepts in which that will help with the on the path of cultivation. When you're able to uphold the precepts, it has a strong correlation with the practice of meditation. Once an individual had practiced meditation and had contemplated on the teachings, they would then realize that all phenomena are elusive. There is an association with wisdom and practice. And within the different forms of precepts, there would also result in different kinds of liberation. There's also the various forms of precepts that are categorized based on the age groups of monastics and the percentage of precepts that is being upheld by an individual. Bodhisattva's precepts is considered as a considered as common precepts. So what does that mean is that no matter whether you are old or young, female or male, so long as whether or not you has a fully able or disabled physical body, you can uphold these bodhisattva precepts as well. So the foundation or the basis is to develop the mind of bodhicitta. You are developing a mind of bodhicitta to liberate and benefit others. If you're able to develop this or make this vow, then you are qualified to uphold these bodhisattva precepts. So if you vow to not violate others, you vow to liberate others and help an individual to attain Buddhahood, so long as you understand the concept, then you're qualified or eligible to uphold the Bodhisattva's precepts. So for bodhisattvas who vow to liberate others, which includes bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, then they are called as bodhisattva bhikkhu or bodhisattva bhikkhuni when they develop a mind of bodhicitta to help and liberate others. When an individual is developing or initiated, making a vow to develop bodhicitta, and you can make vows to liberate sentient beings from sufferings, to acquire the vast or deep Dhamma. Those are common vows that anyone can make. So another categorization of the precepts are considered called the unique vows. And what it meant is each individual has their own unique vows. For example, the past bodhisattvas have made some vows in the past, and yet in this present lifetime there are many vows that are universal. For example, the 4 universal vows. And out of great compassion, people are willing to make those universal vows as part of their practice. And as mentioned in the Dhamma Sutra, there's various different forms of birth. And regardless of the forms of birth, the Bodhisattva also vow to liberate those beings from sufferings. So those are all based on the mind of great compassion and mind of bodhicitta. However, being even with the mind of bodhicitta and great compassion and loving kindness, these two components cannot be separated from acquiring prajna, or understanding the nature of emptiness. Because of the understanding of emptiness, then you can establish into a mind state where you can observe perfect or complete equality. And because of the understanding of equality, emptiness, and hence you're able to liberate boundless number of sentient beings. When there are people who experience sufferings, the individual who have taken the Bodhisattva's precepts will be willing to assist and to help and liberate those individuals. Bodhisattvas will see all sentient beings with an equal mind. There's no discrimination, and in order to achieve that, the Bodhisattva had realized the teaching of the nature of emptiness. There are the beginner stage of being a Bodhisattva and the advanced or experienced level of a Bodhisattva. For example, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. The beginners may not have reached a level or a state where he or she can liberate sufferings in a very efficient manner, but nonetheless has to progress on the path of cultivation. They will develop in their skillful means. If we are able to develop this vow in establishing a mind of bodhicitta, then that individual will be undertaking the Bodhisattva's precepts. Bodhisattva's precept is a precept where by you undertaking this present lifetime, and it will last life after life. So for the 5 precepts, if you take it in this present time, it only is applicable to this present lifetime. When you die, the essence of the precepts will disappear as well as you come to an end of this present lifetime. What happens is that when you have undertaken the precepts, it is simplified into a function where your mind is purified and is not affected by many of the delusive thoughts. So oil and water cannot be mixed. The nature of emptiness and wisdom, as well as wholesome teachings, can be mixed together. But the nature of emptiness and bad deeds or unwholesome deeds are unable to coincide with one another. And because of this precious nature of pure precepts, when a person undertakes Bodhisattva's precept, it's simply a matter of reinforcing its function. When a person dies and be reborn, whether that individual is born to the heavenly realm or to the human realm, the essence of the Bodhisattva's precepts will follow. It will still remain, even though if the physical body has disappeared or diminished, the essence of the Bodhisattva precept is still present. It simply generates a brighter and a stronger force towards the path of cultivation until he or she attain enlightenment or liberation. In the past, or there was no request of observing vegetarianism when you uphold the 5 precepts or even the Bodhisattva's precepts. However, things have changed over the years, and due to the various influence to local community, even the Chinese traditional temples, when it's during the time of 175 BC approximately, the king had established a rule to stop to embark or begin to observe vegetarianism for monastic members. Since then, we have the requirement that for those who observe the Bodhisattva's precept, they have to be vegetarian. So there is this saying that we have to seek for attaining the Buddhahood and not be vegetarian, but the other way around is not applicable. So
日常生活从理解到如果不好，来生会不好，这种理念。
we should try to observe and refrain from killing and observe vegetarianism as much as possible, as it would be helpful on our path of cultivating and to attaining Buddhahood. So there are a lot more requirements for observing the Bodhisattva's precepts, but we'll see how our future conditions So now we have come to an end of our Dhamma talk. Please rise slowly. And we'll transfer merits. May kindness, joy, compassion, and equanimity pervade all Dhamma roots. Equality and patience thoughts of gratitude. Let us express our gratitude to Most Venerable Shending. One half bow.